I now invite Dr. Gwynne Dyer to address Convocation.
Well, thank you, Chancellor, President, students, graduates, family and friends. It's nice to know that I have a gruff but authoritative voice. So I might as well use it. And, of course, pull no punches. Sorry, I'm strangling here. That's it. I'm going to give you some good news and then a bit of bad news, but I think the balance is good. First of all, congratulations on choosing the right time to graduate, indeed to be born, because you're actually inheriting a world that's in much better shape than those in my trade, journalism, pretend it is. I mean, we need bad news. That's what we live off of. But there's an awful lot of good news behind the bad news. I mean, I've been traveling this planet for quite a while now, and I have to tell you that almost everywhere I go is better than it used to be in almost every dimension. More peaceful, more prosperous, freer. Obviously, mostly I write about the exceptions, where there is war and poverty and tyranny, but that's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world is that we have now had the longest period of peace, well, since civilization began, actually. No great power, and they're the dangerous ones. They're the ones with the ability to do great harm, as opposed to little bits of harm. No great power has fought any other great power for 60 years. That is the longest time ever. Moreover, they show no signs of wanting to do so now. No great power threatens any other great power. No great power fears attack by any other great power. It's quite extraordinary. Don't know why they've kept all those nuclear weapons, but they're working on them. There are vested interests there, of course. And even among the lesser powers, where wars and civil wars and so on still go on, there are many fewer than there used to be. Goes on like this, I'll run out of things to write about in 20 years. I don't think I need to worry about that, though. And you are inheriting a world which is both richer and fairer than the one I inherited or the one my parents inherited. Richer not just because we're richer in Canada, though God knows we are incredibly rich. We have poor people, and that's our shame, but we are incredibly rich. But richer all around the planet, even the countries we used to think of as the third world, the poor countries, are mostly escaping from poverty. Everybody talks about China and 10% growth for 30 years and what that does, and boy, does it do a lot. But it's happening in India, it's happening in Brazil, it's happening in South Africa, it's happening in Turkey, it's happening in Mexico. All these once poor countries becoming reasonably prosperous countries. And now the same phenomenon is extending to Africa and to the Middle East, I hope, but certainly to Africa. You probably didn't know this, but the average growth in all of the African countries over the past 5 years has been 5%, which is about twice what a sort of fully developed country does when in good times, never mind recessions. And these countries are also much freer. One of the things that I have found myself doing repeatedly over the past 25 years is going to a tyranny and watch it non-violently turn into a democracy. Starting in 1986 in the Philippines, and on through South Korea and Taiwan and Thailand and Bangladesh, and then finally in '89 China gallantly, but alas unsuccessfully. The students tried to make it a democracy. I thought they might have succeeded, but the cards came down the other way. And then, of course, even in that same year, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of European communism, the end of the Soviet Union and the Cold War, the end of apartheid in South Africa in 1994, and the emergence of a democratic state there, non-violently. All of this non-violently. We thought revolutions were about blood all over the walls, but they weren't. We figured out a better way to do it, actually a more efficient way, as well as a less violent way. Serbia in 2000, Ukraine and Georgia in 2002, 2003, and now, in the last 2 years, the Arab world, the one remaining bastion of tyranny in the world, has been democratizing itself non-violently. If this isn't good news, I would love to know what would be. And I know there's always failures, always things going wrong. Syria is a tragedy. Egypt is not a tragedy. Tunisia is not a tragedy. I don't think Yemen or Libya will end up being tragedies either, and actually there's changes underway non-violently without even the need of crowds in the street in our other Arab countries. So we are living in a world where for the first time ever the democratic peoples are in the majority. Oh, and one last observation on that front. Democratic countries almost never fight each other, which may explain the steep decline in the number of wars even among the non-great powers. We're running out of people to have wars with. Okay, that's enough good news. I am a journalist. Here's two little bits of bad news. One is about the careers you're about to embark upon. No, I'm not saying there's no jobs. There are no jobs, but I'm not saying that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that will pass, you know, or you just have to be really cunning and wait a while and kill a couple of your colleagues and you'll get a job. It's a longer term issue, which is that, well, Moore's law still holds. The processing capacity of computers doubles about every 18 months, which means that the jobs that have already been replaced by computers, like, for example, you know, every ATM is the ghost of 3 bank clerks, and every self-service checkout is the ghost of 3 supermarket checkout people. Well, it climbs up the skill levels, you know. The faster, cleverer computers start taking other jobs away, jobs that you might in a moment of desperation consider. And later on, jobs that you'd be grateful to have. So my only advice to you is, whatever enterprise, field of activity, job you get, embark upon, career, ask yourself once in a while, which of these jobs will still be here in 15 years' time, and which ones will be automated? And choose your career path accordingly. That's just a thought about, economic survival. We are eventually going to have to figure out how to keep this population satisfied with the wealth that we have without actually allocating it solely on the basis of work. But that's a long time off. So at the moment you need work, and you do have to think this through. The other little bit of bad news, and then I'll be finished, is, of course, that you do inherit the problem, the threat of climate change. And I'm not going to bang on about that. I do that elsewhere, but then they're paying me. It is a monstrous problem. It will fill your horizons politically during most of your working lives. And if we get it right, at some expense and at some sacrifice, you have a wonderful future. And if we don't, you will be punished very badly by runaway warming. which would not hurt Canada as much as it would other countries for quite a long time, but eventually, thinking in terms of your children's generations, would hurt you too, would hurt them. So, sorry about that. We should have got it better. But, I can't really break down in grief and guilt. Every generation gets one. Right? My grandfather's generation got the First World War. My father's generation got the Second World War. My generation got the Cold War and spent its time waiting to be blown away in World War III. Much better than being blown away, but it's still a bit of a burden psychologically at the time. And you get climate change. Sorry about that, but it's your turn. So get on with it. Thank you very much.